Hey everyone, welcome to Founders365 with me, Steven Haggerty. Today I am joined by Sunil Varma, and he is a fellow coach. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. How are you doing, Sunil?
I'm doing really great, thank you. Thanks for having me on, Stephen.
No, thank you for coming on.
You're very welcome.
And let's jump straight into it. And can you just let people know your story? Like, what is it that you do? Who do you focus on? And how did you get to where you are?
Yeah, what I do is I work with business people and entrepreneurs, business people, athletes, everyone who's in the market to work with a high-end coach. So how I got into this was I was just very sick for many years, and I went through a major awakening, and the awakening just changed my whole perspective on basically everything. It's like when you go through something with such magnitude, it kind of turns everything that you ever knew kind of upside down, and then you just understand that wow, this is really it really is a quantum reality that we're living in. And at that time, even though I was doing such great work with people, I never really saw it thoroughly from that point of view that this really is a quantum reality, that our thoughts actually create what we are actually experiencing, where we're living, what we're doing. It's 100% a quantum reality.
Do you find that a lot of people have trouble understanding that, your thoughts sort of provoke action?
I think a lot of people probably don't want to know that it actually provokes action. I think people are very. I think a lot of people want, they're very hip with what's going on, but on the emotional level, I don't think people really actually want to register that this isn't your reality. It really isn't real. It really isn't. It's just nobody wants to fathom that.
Do you often find that, from what I've seen as well, that people have to go through, similar to what you went through, they have to go through some sort of life event, whether that's good, whether that's bad, and that kind of allows them to reassess what's going on in their world?
It does. For me, I'll tell you, when I went through this major awakening, it was so huge for me that I lost everything, and it made me realize that it was never real anyway. When it was all just an illusion. Everything that I had, that's all it ever was. And on top of that, when I was going through this mass awakening, I was in India as I was going through it, and something strange happened to me when I was there. I was just sitting in the living room, and suddenly I could feel all this pressure come into my head, and I freaked out. I was like, oh God, shit, what's wrong with me? What's going on?
Yeah, of course.
And I could just feel all this pressure in my brain. And so I called a friend of mine. I said, look, am I going nuts, or what is really going on? He said, no, just breathe. And he says, you're getting to see reality. And the more I just sat there breathing, everything around me just completely changed. My sibling, like family members, they all became like superimposed characters in a screenplay.
Wow.
They all became speeded up. Everything about all their actions speeded up like tenfold. So it was like you could just see these characters operating at times 10.
Yeah.
Right, all around me.
How did you know at that moment that was an okay space to hold and not do what 9 out of 10 people do and call for help, call an ambulance?
Well, I think it was great that I had this friend of mine who was right there with me, right? So he was just, every time I was checking in with him, and he's very keyed in. So he was like, okay, breathe. Okay, just breathe in. Just breathe. You're not losing it. You're not going crazy. You're just getting to see what the truth is, what reality actually is. So as everything was going on, and I could see all my family members doing all their movements times 10. Yeah, it was just incredible to see that, because as I saw that, I got to realize, shit, this isn't real. Even the relationships I have aren't real. None of it's real. It's all just a game. Everything is just a big game that when we come into this body, when we come into this earth plane, and we take on this body, we're just living out these contracts with people. That's really what we're doing. And some people will come into your life as a villain. They'll come into your life as somebody who really, whatever. They'll be either a loving person or the opposite end of it.
Yeah.
But it's all just a contract. They're coming there to teach you something about your soul that you need to learn in order for you to evolve.
Is the aim of the game to win? Is the aim of the game
it's always to win? Yeah, you're always set up to win. Nothing's really everything that I've been through. I mean, I had major trauma as well in my life, right? I had a lot of traumatic experiences as a child. And so for me, because of all those events, for me, it was just like, how do I heal this stuff? It's like I tried everything. At that time, I tried everything. I saw so many people, but nothing really could heal these traumatic events that happened to me because they got stored in my body. And so everything that I did wouldn't touch it. You could do as much NLP as you want, but it doesn't touch the trauma. It doesn't get close, because trauma is very clever. Because when the mind gets traumatized, it kind of like tries to protect you. It doesn't want you to get close to the event. And so all these experiences, and plus, it just opened up information inside of myself, and I just started to understand how to actually heal myself. It just became clear.
Then what compelled you to help others?
That was mainly, for me, I was a born healer. I've always been a healer, so it's just who I am. And as much as even when I was younger, the funny thing is we come into these lifetimes and we somehow forget what our soul's calling is.
Sure.
Yeah, it's very easy to forget it and do something else. And then at the end of the day, you're in there wishing and wanting something greater. So for me, it was just I forgot who I was. And I forgot that I was this great being who had these great gifts. And that all the things that had happened to me, I actually knew inside how to resolve them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just have really forgotten.
In terms of your work, do you focus quite heavily on the energetic healing side of things?
No, really, no. My work is designed to help people feel their emotions, feel through the pain, to actually feel through it until the brain actually starts to go back into a place where it's just no longer feeling fight or flight mode.
And
it's all about feeling.
When you're dealing with clients, like what stage are they at to think, oh, I need you to help me? What's going on in their world?
Yeah, usually I think when people are really in a lot of pain, right? You see, sometimes people can be in a place where they don't register that, or they don't think that, I don't need anyone, I can get through this and stuff like that. And they won't even pay attention to the fact that when you have trauma in your body, the trauma affects the decision making that you're making all the time. It screws it all up. And so when people come to me, they're wanting to go completely to that next level where it's freedom, where I can be free from all of this pain or these memories that have really been bothering me since childhood. So what I'm working on is helping people resolve real-time things that are actually going on in their life right now.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. And I'm sure you achieve it. So what I'm really curious to know is, because of that sort of that type of work that you do with clients, it does seem like there's a lot of, in the industry and coaching industry, in therapy industry, and whatever we want to sort of class it as, there seems to be a lot of healers coming out, a lot of energetic people. How have you managed to deal with that in terms of still being heard, but also why do you think there are more and more people coming out in this sort of industry?
It's a question that when I used to live in America, this is the same question I remember I talked to a friend of mine, and I said, what is really going on here? Why is everyone doing healing when they don't even know what they're doing?
Yeah.
Everyone's jumping onto the bandwagon of healing people when they really don't know that when you actually are healing someone, if you don't know what you're doing, you could actually leave them worse off than what they were in the beginning.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's really because of the cash flow, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people like to become healers because it's easy money.
Exactly. And it's not, sometimes it's not as tangible as people may think. But
Right.
what I often see is the danger of that is, it's that typical sort of situation where they've overcome a trauma in their life or something like that. And then they've gone, right,
Yeah.
I don't want to use this example, but I'll use it. But, I was severely depressed and then I've done this, so then I can help others. Like that seems
Exactly. Yeah.
the
Right.
almost like the blueprint to become a coach or healer. And it is, and we've got to remind people that aren't in our world, this is an unregulated world, right? So
it is, right.
Anyone can wake up tomorrow and say, hey, they're a life coach, or hey, they're a healer, or whatever it is. I know that you've done loads of training. I've done loads of training. Do you think that aspect firstly helps the person individually become better, which is sort of an obvious yes, but also in terms of the industry standard, do you think that helps that?
Any kind of training that you do, right, it's going to ignite qualities inside of your soul that have been dormant for many years. So I think any kind of, again, training that you do is always going to make you a better coach, obviously. But one thing that what I realized in all the trainings that I've done with people is that I had to go through that in order to get to where I had to get to, in order to experience the spiritual awakening, in order to evolve the way I did. It wouldn't have happened if I didn't go through any of that kind of stuff.
What are some of the when clients are coming to you, what are some of the myths that you have to break about what you do?
Well, nothing is like a one session thing. There's no such thing as a one session deal, right? You know that. So it's like, can I make somebody rich? I don't think so. It's like whatever, as far as money goes and wealth goes, it's like nobody can promise anybody that kind of stuff. You can't, because it's written differently for every single person.
100%.
And so I really feel with a lot of people, it's not going to happen in one day. You may not get wealthy, but I can tell you one thing though, you will definitely become more peaceful. So it's up to you. What do you want? Peace, or do you want more money? That's how I look at it. Do you want to be, at bliss with yourself? But even to get to the level of bliss, you have to be prepared to do the internal work. Yeah, there's so much out there that says that you can be like this tomorrow. It doesn't happen like that, because you've got to experience.
Of course.
Yeah, it doesn't happen like that. It's like you have to put the work in. You've got to do the work. Nobody can do it for you.
Do you find that sometimes people expect a surprise when they realize that? Well, a surprise that you go, look, we can do this, but you're the one doing the hard work here.
Yeah, I think I've never really, I always used to, even now when I work with people, I'm just really the one who's the guide, right? They're the one who's doing the work. It's like I'm just helping you just to take away the mud, that's in front of your lenses.
Yeah.
But it's really, it's never going to be any different than that. It's, it's a fairy tale if you paint a different picture to somebody. You're just a conduit. You're teaching people how to take ownership of their own lives. You're giving them back their own power. Helping them take back their power. That's really what my job is.
Do you think you'll always be doing this?
I think it's in my it's in my blood. I've been doing it for many years now, and I think for me it's going to be moving in the role of a teacher and just teaching people to self-heal, self-correct. I'm kind of like moving away from the healer role, as I think anyone who has been a healer would understand. The times are changing now. So I mean, a lot of people are wanting to learn these things. How can I actually do it myself? How can I optimize my own brain? You know, my mindset. How can I do it? You know.
Does that mean that help is becoming easily accessible, or do you think there's always going to be a need for, in terms of easily accessible, in terms of like one-to-many, or do you think there's always going to be a need for, you know, the one-to-one individual work?
I think there's always, you know, I look at it now, right, as like a consulting thing, somewhere where you can consult with somebody, you can work with them for a period of time, and then let them loose, and say, okay, you try it out, you see how you're doing, and then call me in for a consult. You know, you can consult with me, and then we can see how you're doing. But it's definitely a way that everything is moving. This is how I feel. Humanity is moving in a direction where humanity is looking to become more empowered, right? They're not wanting people to give them any magic potions or stuff like that. You know, it's just like, show me, can I do it? Because when you can do it, it's like then you get this, you just start to like, you can walk again, you know, rather than think that the other person's got the magic bullet.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Let's talk about the entrepreneurship side of things at the moment. What would you say the current state of the entrepreneurial market is like? Because it's changed so much in the last, I mean, I'm going to say like 3 years rather than 5 or 10 or 20. It's such a quick pace now. What, from where you sit and where you stand and the people you speak to, what have been some of the challenges that a lot of people are coming to overcome now versus, you know, 5-6 years ago?
Are you talking about psychological? Or are you talking about as far as a business sense?
Let's go with both. Let's go with, you know, the entrepreneur as a person, and then how that affects the business.
Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, you're right. You always know that even when markets crash, or when you know, like things are changing as much as they are, you are the one who's got to optimize your, you know, you've got to do your inner work all the time to stay with that. Because if you don't do that, this is how I look at it. If you don't do your inner work, you're gonna start believing the stories that are out there, right? This coronavirus thing is a great opportunity for a lot of people to assist other people and help them out of that mindset. You know, you just got to look for the opportunities in everything that presents itself, especially when everybody's looking at it from a negative angle. You've got to look at the positive angles and see how can I help people? How can I serve people?
In what sense?
With this coronavirus, right? This is one example. You know, you can see that it's really affecting a lot of people. You know, and people's mindsets are really going, you know, really down really quick. But one of the things that you can do is to come up with something that can help people feel even more empowered, right? To go inside of themselves and to realize, oh shit, you know, look, this is just like an emotional or a mental based program, something inside of myself that I could change. That's how I look at it.
How do people typically know when they're at that spot, when they realize that, you know, their mindset's down, they're at a negative position in their life? What's normally going on for them?
Probably,
and use current circumstances as a great example.
Sometimes you can get really suicidal, right? Sometimes people can be suicidal. Sometimes they can be so negative inside that you can hear all these YouTube videos that people will say, oh, don't try, be positive, do all that. But how do people actually do that?
Exactly.
Right? It's very easy for people to identify with their thoughts because you've got trillions of them going through your brain all the time, right? So you can be the observer of thoughts, you know, and you can watch all the thoughts in the skyline of your mind. But then as humans at some level identify with something, they can't help it because it's part of the hardwiring of the mind.
Yeah.
Right? And it's designed like that. Every person is uniquely designed so that they can awaken to their true self.
But it's easy for us to say that. But if someone was listening and they wanted, and something in them was like, okay, I want to try and figure out, you know, my true self and my own reality.
Yeah,
What's
I get
the
you.
things that what's like the first step for them to do that?
First step for anybody to do to actually want to experience what it's like to be yourself, what would that be? I remember for myself, right? I'll use myself as an example.
Yeah.
I went through the worst depression anybody could ever go through when I was in my 30s, and it got to a place that it was so bad for me that inside of myself, not only was I in bad shape, I couldn't walk,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my feet were, for 20 years, they caused me so much aggro and pain. And yeah, I kept moving forward even though I was in immense pain. You know, my feet were, yeah, they were horrible. They were a big mess.
Mm-hmm.
And that caused me manic depression. It caused me to just want to hide from people because of the pain.
For sure.
And then on top of that, there was a lot of not only was there depression there, I had huge mental illness problems. So if I was in a relationship with a woman, the relationship wouldn't last for it just wouldn't last for a long time. Yeah, it was great to have it, but I just couldn't be myself to make it flourish. And I wouldn't have even known what it meant to be myself if somebody would have told me,
Exactly.
right? So I wouldn't have known that then. If somebody would have told me, even with all the training I did with the hypnotherapy, NLP, all these things, nobody even told me then that it's actually not just your emotional bodies that you need to concern yourself with, it's your mental bodies.
Mm-hmm.
There's an emotional and mental component to it, right? So I wouldn't have known those things unless when these happened to me, and I would watch movies or I would see other people, how they would communicate with each other. It just reminded me inside, so what's wrong with me? What's my problem? How come I'm really finding it difficult to just smile, be
So
myself?
what in that state, what was your first step then? What was that moment you said to yourself, right, it's time to change?
Well, I'll tell you, look, I went through, it was the physical pain, right? The physical pain was it was a nightmare. I couldn't, I wouldn't, you wouldn't even want to imagine it. It was horrible for me, the physical pain. The more the pain, the heartache, the pain, all these things started happening to me. Then I had these blood clots in my legs, so it's like all these things start to go wrong in me. And then suddenly, 4 years ago, it really heightened. Everything just collapsed even more. And then I got to a stage where I said, you know what? That's it. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do it to myself. I'd rather just own my power of who I am and really step into myself.
And was that an instant effect, or did you have to put things in place to make it happen?
No, I had to work on myself. I remember I work. See, for me, I work on myself every day. So I spend like 6 hours or 4 hours working on myself. And I know that if I want to be or have the life I want, only I can do that.
Yeah.
And I have to put the work in to do it. But I also know what's out there, and I know what works and doesn't work. And through trial and error within myself, having tried so many things, I now actually understand what actually helps a person alleviate all of this bad information they're carrying. Buggy software.
Rewire themselves.
Yep, buggy software, rewiring it, totally.
Sunil, listen, I've really enjoyed this chat. It's been super interesting for me. If you could give 3 tips to someone that maybe is going through that sort of dip in their mindset at the moment because of current times, what would those 3 tips be to help them get back to that high level mindset?
3 tips. Obviously, the first thing is going to be self-love, right? This is something that we hear so much of, and everybody's talking about self-love. But what does self-love mean? It's very basic. Put yourself first. Be selfish. Put yourself first, right? And learn to love yourself. Watch, learn on YouTube, whatever you can do, but it's all about nurturing, self-nurture, self-care. Simple little things like that, but be selfish. That's what I would say. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Second thing is, not whatever works for the other person may not work for you, right? It may not. So listen to your gut, listen to your intuition, and follow that. That's probably the biggest thing right there. Self-care, intuition. Probably the third thing, your soul knows. Your soul knows what you want, right? Your soul is the one that knows. And you can pray, right? You can do prayers, and you can pray that your soul guides you and leads you forward. If it's to be with a teacher, somebody who can help you break through, this, whatever these things, the thoughts are in your mind, so be it. But your soul will guide you if you ask your soul. Intuition, self-care, and your soul.
Perfect. Sunil, thank you so much for that wisdom. If anyone wants to get in touch with you directly, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, they can. My website is asksunil.co.uk, and my phone number is on there. And the email address is support@asksunil.co.uk.
Perfect. Sunil, thank you so much for coming on to Founders365. I've been Steven Haggerty. This has been episode number 70 of Founders365. Thanks everyone for watching.
Great. Thanks, Steven.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye-bye.